Palestinians in Gaza struggled on Thursday to celebrate a ceasefire deal being struck as they mourned loved ones killed in Israeli strikes within hours of its announcement. Among the dead and wounded were children. This man said his niece was playing in the yard when she was hit. Is this the truce they're talking about? What did this young girl, this child, do to deserve this? He asked. The complex ceasefire and hostage exchange agreement between Israel and militant group Hamas is set to take effect on Sunday. It was mediated by Qatar, Egypt, and the US following 15 months of bloodshed that devastated the Palestinian enclave. But following its announcement on Wednesday, Israel intensified strikes on Gaza, residents and authorities said, killing dozens overnight. The Israeli military is looking into the reports, a military spokesperson said. According to an Israeli official, the country's security cabinet and government were set to vote on the ceasefire deal on Thursday before it could officially be accepted. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Hamas of making last-minute demands. A statement from his office said, quote, "The Israeli cabinet will not convene until the mediators notify Israel that Hamas has accepted all elements of the agreement." A senior Hamas official said on Thursday the group is committed to the ceasefire accord. Hardliners in Netanyahu's right-wing government were still hoping to stop the deal, with some ministers threatening to quit their posts, though most ministers were expected to back it. In Gaza, meanwhile, residents are holding their breath for a change in their circumstances. This woman said her feelings about the truce were indescribable. "Thank God it was struck after all the suffering we've been through," she said. "The suffering, honestly, is indescribable. Displacement, hunger, extermination." This father of four said he's just hoping that they don't lose more loved ones in this crazy war in the remaining time before the ceasefire comes into effect.
Tahrid al-Dakour hopes she will soon be reunited with the children she's been separated from for over a year. She arrived in Khan Yunis from Gaza City with her husband and some of her children in October 2023 as war erupted between Israel and Hamas. But as a ceasefire and hostage release deal was announced on Wednesday, al-Dakour started packing.
This is the bag that I came with from Gaza City. I have prepared it, so when they tell me that there will be a ceasefire, I will take it and leave, even if I have to go by foot. I can't wait. I really miss seeing my children, my family, and my siblings.
The truce is set to start on Sunday, after 15 months of bloodshed that devastated the coastal territory and inflamed the Middle East. In Gaza City, around 15 miles from where al-Dakour is packing her bags, her son Yusuf sits on the rubble of their destroyed home. He has also been waiting for news of a ceasefire.
I see photos of my family on the internet, on social media. It's as though we do not know each other, due to the changes in features and the emaciation of their bodies. The situation is very difficult.
Seeing his family again, he says, will be a, quote, beautiful feeling of happiness and joy. The deal announced on Wednesday outlines a 6-week initial ceasefire with the gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. Hostages taken by Hamas would be freed in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. If successful, it will end the fighting that has killed tens of thousands, according to Gaza health authorities, left much of the Palestinian enclave in ruins, and displaced most of its population. But al-Dakour says this is a war that will not be forgotten. It is a, quote, painful memory, she says, that will, quote, stay with us our whole lives. It is all sadness and extermination.
The UN says war-ravaged Gaza will need billions of dollars to rebuild. Israel and Hamas have now agreed to a ceasefire deal, but it is unclear when rebuilding efforts might begin and how they would be funded. After 15 months of conflict, here's a breakdown of the destruction in the Palestinian enclave. The Hamas attack on Israel on October 7, 2023 killed 1,200 people, according to Israeli tallies. Gaza's health ministry says Israel's retaliation has killed more than 46,000 people. Gaza has been reduced to 46 million tons of rubble. The UN warned last year that removing it would take 14 years and cost $1.2 billion. The rubble likely holds human remains. The Palestinian Ministry of Health estimated in May that 10,000 bodies were missing under the debris. The UN reported that rebuilding Gaza's destroyed homes would take until 2040, but could drag on for decades. The agency's data found that 2/3 of Gaza's pre-war structures have been damaged or flattened. That amounts to over 170,000 buildings. Within that, the UN estimates, is the destruction of over 245,000 housing units. That's while over 1.8 million people in Gaza are in need of emergency shelter.
Hamas has played the spoiler.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said neighbouring Arab countries aren't keen to help rebuild Gaza if it will be, quote, levelled again a few years down the line. The UN estimated damage to infrastructure totaled $18.5 billion in January 2024. This included destruction of government buildings, hospitals, schools, universities and mosques. An update a year later showed that less than a quarter of the pre-war water supplies were available, while at least 68% of the road network has been damaged. Hunger is widespread in the devastated enclave. Yet, UN satellite images reveal over half of Gaza's agricultural land has been degraded by conflict. In 2024, the international agency found that over 95% of the enclave's remaining cattle had been slaughtered or died since the conflict began.
The Bank of Canada's former Governor Mark Carney launched a bid to replace Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as leader of the country's ruling Liberal Party on Thursday. Speaking at an event in the western city of Edmonton, he cast himself as outside of Trudeau's unpopular government and said that his top focus would be Canada's struggling economy, which faces the looming threat of tariffs as high as 25% from incoming US President Donald Trump.
I am going to be completely focused on getting our economy back on track. I've helped manage multiple crises, and I've helped save 2 economies. I know how business works, and I know how to make it work for you. I've worked around the world, but I'm grounded in what I learned right here in Edmonton. To be responsible, to be fair, to stay humble, to work together, and to never, ever give up.
Despite his pitch, Carney did have close ties to Trudeau. He was named the chair of a task force on economic growth last year. Carney worked for Goldman Sachs before joining the Canadian Finance Ministry in 2004. He was named Bank of Canada Governor in 2007 and later a Governor of the Bank of England. His main rival looks to be former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. She resigned last month over policy differences with Trudeau. Fallout from that led to Trudeau resigning as Prime Minister. The Liberal Party is alarmed by poor polling numbers ahead of an election this year. And should a new Prime Minister be named by early March, he or she is unlikely to be in office for long. The minority government could be toppled in Parliament as soon as the end of March, and that would trigger an election which polls say the official opposition Conservatives could win.
South African rescuers ended their attempts on Thursday to find anyone left in an illegal gold mine near the town of Stilfontein. At least 78 people died during a police siege there. Police had encircled the mine and cut off food and water supplies since August in an effort to force the miners out so they could be arrested. The Giwasu Labour Union called it the worst state-sponsored massacre since the end of the apartheid. A rescue operation finally began on Monday after a court order. Patrick Asaneng is the acting police commissioner for the Northwest Province. He said on Wednesday that 246 people have been rescued.
The 2 volunteers has since come to the surface, and they have indicated to us that they have combed the surface, the underground, and according to them, they can confirm that there are no longer corpses or bodies underground.
On Thursday morning, a cylindrical metal cage with a camera inside was sent down for the last time. The survivors have been arrested and charged with illegal immigration, trespass, illegal mining, and other offences. Most of them are from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Lesotho. The police have said they were enforcing a government crackdown on illegal mining and that to have allowed food and water down during the siege would have meant, quote, allowing criminality to thrive. Illegal mining cost South Africa over $3 billion last year, according to the mining minister. During the siege, police removed a pulley system the miners had previously been using to get in and out. Community leaders and lawyers have alleged there was no way for them to climb out. The pulley was later restored and removed several times during months of negotiations and legal action, according to civil society advocates and community members involved in supporting the miners. The police have denied blocking the miners' exit.
Good to see you all.
In the middle of September 2023, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan outlined an optimistic agenda for an upcoming meeting between President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Focused on the shared democratic values between the United States and Israel, and a vision for a more stable and prosperous and integrated region.
Just a few weeks later, on October 7th, that vision of stability and prosperity went up in smoke. Hamas's deadly rampage through Israeli communities was followed by Israel's devastating retaliation in Gaza, a conflict that then spread, drawing in Lebanon, Yemen, and Iran.
After 8 months of nonstop negotiation by my administration, a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas.
Biden played a major role in securing a Gaza ceasefire deal for Hamas's release of hostages. But analysts say his Middle East record is likely to be remembered not so much for how conflicts ended on his watch, but for how they unfolded, seemingly beyond his ability to contain them. Biden's record on the world stage is likely to be heavily defined by his handling of the 15-month war in Gaza, part of what incoming U.S. President Donald Trump and his fellow Republicans have seized on as a, quote, world on fire during the Democratic president's tenure. They accuse Biden of weak resolve that encouraged foes to foment chaos throughout the region.
The October 7th attack on Israel would never have happened if I was president. Zero chance. It was not going to happen.
Biden's allies contend that he has had to confront a set of Middle East challenges not of his making, and has handled them skillfully, weakening Iran and its regional proxies while working to limit civilian casualties in Gaza and Lebanon.
My administration is leaving the next administration with a very strong hand to play.
But Biden's steadfast support for Israel, in a response that decimated Hamas but also killed tens of thousands of civilians in Gaza, took a heavy toll on U.S. international credibility. It also means there's plenty of unfinished business being handed over to Donald Trump and his administration. Marissa Kurma is the Middle East Program Director at the Wilson Center.
The international community, the United States in particular, as this transition also takes place internally in the United States between the Biden and the Trump administration, has to ensure that both sides are going to adhere to the agreement in order to move forward to the next phase and see how we can start thinking about some sort of post-war plan.
It will fall to the Trump administration to ensure that later phases of the ceasefire deal are carried out.
The U.S. ban on TikTok is set to go into effect on Sunday, so what can American users of the app expect to happen? It's not entirely clear. However, one Biden administration official told NBC that Americans shouldn't expect that the app suddenly be banned on Sunday, and that the administration is weighing options to make the app available to users beyond Sunday. But sources say that users attempting to open the app will be redirected to a website with information about the ban. And one TikTok lawyer told the Supreme Court last week that the app essentially goes dark. This all started back in April with a US law that mandated that ByteDance, which is TikTok's Chinese parent company, either divest from the app or be faced with the ban that goes into effect January 19th. Now, January 19th is also the day before President-elect Donald Trump gets sworn into office, and he is reportedly considering ways to delay the ban by 60 to 90 days, but it's not legally clear if he's able